All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. I am so excited because we actually have a super incredible business owner on with us today. So, we are going to talk to Alex, who is an incredible agency owner of Capricorn Rising. And she works with people who really want to discover, amplify, and nurture their unique genius and really lead inspired and innovative lives. And your clients are, from what I know, obviously super committed to self-actualizing for themselves, their teams, their business. I know you do a lot of astrology and all that good stuff in human design. So I'm excited to talk today.
Thanks so much for having me. Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's a mouthful of an intro. So tell me a little bit more about yourself, just kind of in layman's terms, I guess, like what it is that you do for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, labels are hard, right? But I feel like I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a strategist. I really enjoy using astrology and human design to enter into strategy with my clients because
Mm-hmm.
there are these incredible modalities that help us frame advice and guidance.
Mm-hmm.
It is not one size fits all, as we know from like living our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people cut down on the trial and error as much as possible. I feel like there's a lot out there. People will give advice from their unique perspective, and that's incredible. And that can be really, really helpful for us. But I know when I was trying to figure out my lane and my genius, I tried a lot of things that just did not work for me and burnt me out. And I just want to help people navigate that a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. Well, so I obviously I know some stuff about astrology and I know very little, I will admit, about human design. So I'm excited to kind of hear you talk a little bit more about it. But tell me
Yeah.
more about how you feel like those are super connected, obviously, to business. I know you'd mentioned not having like cookie cutter strategies and people giving advice from their unique perspective.
Yeah.
So when you talk about using that as like even a starting point for strategy, tell me a little bit more about how you actually do that.
Yeah, for sure. So astrology is like ancient. We've been using
Yeah.
it since millennia. So that came first as a modality. And human design came in the 80s. So it actually pulls
Hmm.
in astrology, but it pulls in I Ching and Kabbalah, and it creates this kind of operating system that is informed by astrology. So they are interconnected. They are both set. So when you put in your birth time, as you know, when you get your birth chart, human design
Hmm.
is the same way. It cuts down on human error, right? Because we're not doing like a Myers Briggs where you could effectively take that differently every time. Most
Hmm.
people don't, but it's not a hard and fast. It might evolve, it might change. Your birth chart and your human design chart don't change.
Hmm.
So I love that because I think one, if we can't change it, we might as well work with it and figure it out. And it gives us incredible insight into how we're wired, what's
Hmm.
for us and what's not for us, which, like
Hmm.
I said, is very helpful for people to get those kind of parameters. So I pull people's charts. If I'm working with somebody one on one and it's in depth, I'll go in depth into the chart, both charts.
Hmm.
But high level, I like to take the rising sign, the sun sign, and then combine it with the energy type in human design and create that genius archetype. And that gives
Mm.
us so much insight into how to move through the world just at a high level. There's a ton
Hmm.
of it there. So like, for example, for you and your chart,
Yes,
you know you're a Libra sun and you're a
I
Virgo rising.
do.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, and then in human design, your energy type is called a generator. So that
Okay.
is, you have consistent energy throughout the day. You are, um, your strategy is to respond to stimuli as it's presented to you.
Hmm.
And that alone, like those three archetypes, we can put them together and surmise a ton of information. So, like, for example, well, is there anything that you're trying to figure out in your business right now or like navigating through?
I think navigating through, I've talked about this a lot on social media. I think the biggest thing right now is I'm recognizing that we leaned like almost too far into strategy and not enough into like the relational and the human element of what we do in our marketing. So that's something, not that I'm trying to figure out, more so that I'm navigating because that's very different for me because I'm not somebody who like opens up easily, and it's something I'm trying to grow in right now, basically. So
Okay,
that's something we're working on.
got it. Okay, so you actually have. So I'll back up. Your genius archetype is a cardinal mutable generator, and that's because
Hmm.
your sun is a Libra, and that's a cardinal sign. Those are initiators. Your rising sign is Virgo. They are mutable signs. They close the
Hmm.
loop on things. And
Hmm.
then generator, you are here to respond. You're here to utilize your energy. You're here to devote your energy to one specific topic and go like
Hmm.
really on that. And I know you've done that in your business,
Hmm.
which is fantastic.
Yes.
So I would say your energy is really great for initiating things and closing the loop on things. So where
Hmm.
you're if you're focusing your time on like developing systems and like really in the meat and potatoes of things, that's actually not your strong suit. Your strong
Right.
suit is starting and ending. So
Mm.
that can be interesting, number one. Number two, with mutable energy in particular, for and with generator energy for social media, I like a catalyst call and response type of strategy. So you throw out your hot take, right? And then
Hmm.
people ask you questions and you just use those to prompt the responses.
Yep.
Though that probably works really well for you,
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Yeah, it
And then
does.
it's touch, right? Like you actually are good at the community element of it because mutable signs often are. It just might be like the way that you do it is a bit more Virgo, right? It's more organized, it's a little bit more grounded, it's giving people
Hmm.
tangible tools
Hmm.
and advice. It's kind of scholarly actually in
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like going to school with you.
Yeah, a little bit.
As like,
Yeah.
somebody who's consumed your content. So I feel like leaning maybe into like that's where this archetype is so helpful, right? Because it's like there's so many different approaches. And
Hmm.
why not try and tweak? It just needs a
Yeah.
little pivot, not like a
Yeah.
throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly what we're focusing on right now. So that's really interesting that that's all like already rooted in there. That's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, yeah, you're very much like high touch approach, which
Yeah.
is great. And I think, that
Hmm.
also helps you with strategy too, because you're like, all right, I'm in it and it's not working. So let me pivot,
Hmm.
figure it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, I love that. I'm curious to know, just since you've talked about obviously like strategy and human design and astrology and how you use that kind of as like the foundation, what's your take on like the balance between strategy and energy and like human design and astrology? Do you feel like there is like a perfect balance? Do you feel like it's different per person? What's your approach on
Yeah. I mean, I think knowing a little bit about the strategy for each type is really helpful. So, you, for example, as a generator, many people are going to respond to that because there are many generators out there. You want to be in a place where you're saying yes, no, and you're relying on your gut
that?
to kind of lead you in that yes, no. But if you have to sit in a place where you're often the one who's presenting the information, often that can feel unaligned. So you could pitch all
Hmm.
day, right? And if you're like not getting any responses, you're like, well, I feel like I can't bounce off of anything. And
Hmm.
so there needs to
Yeah.
be collaboration there. And so I think it's really important to have that strategy because again, we've been taught, oh, it's a volume play, or
Hmm.
oh, like rejection is redirection, sure. But those are like platitudes, right? Like that's not helpful
Hmm.
when you can apply it to your
Hmm.
specific, or you start applying it and it's not working. Like my
Right.
strategy is completely different than yours. And I don't have consistent energy throughout the day. I have like bursts of energy and then I
Right.
dip. So I have to work with, if I'm getting an urge and I'm getting a creative idea, I've got to go with it until I run out of steam,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't force it. And if I've run out of steam, I
Right.
need to rest, like completely rest. So I think it's really important for people. The strategy is how to use the energy with these
Mm-hmm.
modalities, you know?
I love that. Yeah, I love that because I think that people make such a distinction between the two. It's like there has to be strategy and then there is energy and there is astrology. Like or we completely categorize the two differently, but I love that you're saying like the strategy is the energy
Yeah.
because it's very true. I mean, and I think that that's something I'm sure you've even seen in the online space where you talk about how, these people are giving like cookie cutter strategies and it's what's worked for them and it's what's based on their like unique viewpoint and perspective. And I think that's where you really get into trouble as a business owner is when you don't do things like unique to who you are as a person.
Yeah, completely. And now we live in
Mm-hmm.
the age of constant inundation with information, and
Mm-hmm.
people are algorithmically searching for business strategy, then they're just going to get
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of talking heads. They potentially are all saying different things, and
Yeah.
then it's confusing and overwhelming for business owners, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to find like their people. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many voices out there, but we're not all made for each other, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind
Yeah.
of the point. Um,
Right.
and so I just want people to have discernment. I think giving them information like this empowers them, number one, but number two, it gives them this like, what I love when my clients start to do is like even push back on my advice. They're like, I don't know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's going to work, or I don't like that for the website. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
like good. I'm glad
Yeah.
that's what you want, like it's not
Mm-hmm.
mine. It is yours, and you should take
Mm-hmm.
that step and ownership over it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something that a lot of business owners struggle with in the beginning is really trusting themselves and trusting their gut and looking to themselves for the answers and like sitting with it until it comes versus looking to other people like coaches or mentors or things like that to give them the answers to scale. So I love that. If somebody was to basically want to start to incorporate this really into their marketing strategy and they're just trying to kind of get started with everything, tactically, what would you say like the first couple steps would be to incorporating this in?
Yeah. Well, I would buy my course, Unlock Your Genius.
Amazing. I love it. Shameless plug. Do it. I love it.
Shameless plug, but it's going to give you all the information of like how to pull that
Yeah.
information and get started. I would get
Yeah.
started with marketing. I would get started with employing your human design strategy, actually. So, what I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
you about with the generator strategy, call and response,
Mm-hmm.
70% of the population is going to respond to that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
good at being on social media if they want to do social media marketing and putting something out there, getting responses to it, responding. That is, again, that strategy is going to work for about 70% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a projector, your strategy is to wait for the invitation. This is something where I think a marketing strategy is great, like network marketing. So, referrals, I mean. So,
Mm-hmm.
more like your work is out there. It speaks for itself. You're going to get word of mouth referrals based on
Mm-hmm.
like, one client that's a projector, and
Mm-hmm.
she creates and designs websites for people. So her work is literally out there.
Mm-hmm.
She works with people on a regular basis, and then she has this referral flywheel that like works amazingly well for her. So I would start with your energy type and employing your strategy and just applying that to marketing first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost.
Okay, I love that. And I think that's a great starting place for most people because it sounds like a lot of, what you're talking about when it comes to employing like your human design and astrology and all that good stuff. That's really like it can be obviously incorporated into every element of your business, but especially in the front facing marketing. It's so
Yeah,
crucial, I would say, probably to lean into it in that area. So I love
totally.
that. I am curious just to kind of back up in terms of like your story, how you even really started to incorporate this with like branding and the customer journey and things like that. Like what inspired you to combine all of that?
Yeah, like I was doing it for myself. I was doing it for clients. It's how I kind of enter into any conversation. Like if you know me, you know, I'm like, if I like you and we're like
Yeah.
jamming, like, let me pull up your chart. Like it's just
I love that.
everything. Like I just need it, you know?
Yeah.
It's really, really helpful for like figuring out, like, I think, you know, going all the way back, I'm somebody who grew up in a way where I felt like I needed to figure out the adults around me. I needed to figure out
Hmm.
where I was in the world. And like these modalities are just fantastic for people like us
Hmm.
that are highly sensitive and empathetic. And
Hmm.
so so that's kind of how I enter into every conversation. What ended up happening was I started a business that was just specifically like astrology based.
Hmm.
And, but I had all this corporate experience, corporate background, and
Hmm.
entrepreneurial experience because I grew up, my dad and my grandfather started a business. So what I realized is I'm calling in clients who are entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm working with founders like, you know, 50% of the time at least. Well, clearly there's something to this. And then that methodology
Hmm.
started to really formulate. And I thought, oh, this is actually the business. You know, never mind that I
Hmm.
do to do a fair amount of education on what it is and how we're doing it because it's very,
Hmm.
very different. But what I love is that astrology and human design and these intuitive modalities are in the lexicon now, right? Like they're like how we relate to one another. And I
Hmm.
love that. And then there's a lot of people who are looking to do their own thing, who aren't fitting into a mold, who are trying to carve out their lane. And that can be in a corporate environment too, don't get me wrong. But obviously these two things shake hands, you know? And so like I really love sitting at that intersection because I've just seen it be really so helpful for so many of my clients. And I thought this is the thing.
That missing piece that a lot of people are looking for. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. And I agree with you. I think, like I mentioned, I see, because obviously we work with business owners all day, and a lot of times they are founders, right? Where I think the biggest thing is like not trusting themselves and not really having like a foundation with which to like operate their business off of. And it sounds like from what you're talking about, that foundation is really an understanding of themselves and how they operate and their purpose and place kind of in the world and in their industry. And by incorporating all of this, they're able to have something to go off of that gives them that understanding, which in turn helps create exponentially better results for them, which is so awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, you know, trusting yourself allows you to say, this is the path that I want to go down. This is what I desire. This is what
Hmm.
I want. And many people vacillate on that, which,
Hmm.
as we know, and you know, well, I'll back up. In manifestation, if you say, I want this and I want this, it's just your wishy washy sending up things to the universe and expecting that
Hmm.
you're going to get what you need, right? No, you get what you
Hmm.
ask for. You get what you believe you can have. And that
Hmm.
those like things for people, if we're giving them information that helps them feel validated, trustworthy of their own decision making, and empowered, you can have whatever you want. Like we see that all the time. We see it reflected in other people's realities, right? So that means
Hmm.
it's available for you too. You just have to get clear.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm curious to know from the founders that you've worked with who have started to incorporate this really like into just their day-to-day operating, what do you feel like this has done for them that other founders or business owners are missing out on? Like, what does their life look like when they incorporate this?
I had a client the other day. We started to do this work. We started to ground down. And
Hmm.
she started to take the advice and employ it right away. And literally overnight, she started to get bookings. She actually she builds tiny homes and she had like puts them out on Airbnb. So she's like, okay, Alex, like I'm gonna put them up for a higher price. I'm doing it
Hmm.
overnight because we need to get started. Literally overnight, she started to get bookings. And she was like,
Wow.
holy shit, this works. I'm like, yeah, I told you, like, you just have to trust it and you can accelerate. I think the path of entrepreneurship, as you know, is
Hmm.
very soul intensive. Like, there's a lot of growth,
Yes.
there's a lot of change that you need to make. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying it goes quickly. There's no get rich quick, obviously.
Hmm.
I know that too. But like there is an acceleration that can happen when you start to just say, I'm choosing this lane.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's right or wrong, I'm choosing it. And I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can in this direction until like another thing comes on.
Mm-hmm.
And you're using astrology and human design, you can trust that it's the right path. Yeah, you might need to tweak it like here and there, but you can trust that this is aligned and wired for you. So you
Mm-hmm.
get to cut through the noise of like, well, it might not work.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're pretty sure. We just need to like apply it and continue, make like some tweaks, right? But like we're
Mm-hmm.
sure that this is how your energy works. We're sure that this is how you're wired. We're sure that this is what lights you up and what you're interested in. So let's go
Mm-hmm.
with that. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just need somebody to be like a cheerleader for them and like
Mm-hmm.
help them make those definitive choices. And then yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want people to need me
Mm-hmm.
forever.
I love that.
Or
I love
or
that.
you know,
Right. No, and I think that that's the same philosophy that we follow. It's like I can give you all of the principles of marketing and sales because my goal is for you not to need me. My goal is for you to be autonomous in creating those results. And I think that this is just another vehicle for them to be able to do that with, right? But I would almost venture to say it's even more important because marketing and sales is always going to shift and change you, who you are innately as a person. Yes, you'll develop, but like at your core are really not going to shift and change a ton, right?
totally.
So I think this is the thing really that if you can lock this in, you can pivot and adapt really with anything and be successful. So I love that.
Wow, you're
You,
a good saleswoman. Has anyone ever told you?
I know. It's so weird. It's almost as if I like do that for a
Do
living.
this?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to something that you said because I think this is something that a lot of business owners struggle with. You talked a lot about like you can trust this, right? And I think when business owners start and scale their business, no matter what phase they're in, there is this lesson you have to learn of like trusting the process. So I'm curious to know because you said it with like such confidence of like you can trust this, and I think that they have a hard time discerning what they can and can't trust. Why do you feel so confident that like this is so trustworthy, this is proven? I think I know your answer, but talk to me about that and talk to me about like the process of learning to trust.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's the biggest hurdle, like you said. And I trust it and I feel this confidently because I've helped like hundreds of people do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's proven now. And I do want people to go through like check my
Mm-hmm.
credentials. Like, you know, do this for everybody that you can want to
Yes.
work with, and are
Mm-hmm.
considering, right? Because this may work, but you also have to be invested in the
Mm-hmm.
process just as much as I am, right? But I'm so confident because like I see it work every day and I do it myself and
Mm-hmm.
I walk the walk. So to me, it's just a no brainer. It's also, depending on whatever modality you use, and this happens a lot, like I'll say something and I'm using my intuition as well. And somebody will say, oh, my therapist just said that to me. And my friend just said that to me. And I'm like, well, the
Weird.
the
Yeah.
message is trying all these different vessels to get to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so like, we can use astrology, we can use human design, we can use Myers-Briggs, we can use a marketing framework. Like however the
Mm-hmm.
message gets to you, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about like again, taking that in, investing in it yourself, feeling like does this feel good to me in my body? Like check
Mm-hmm.
in, let like make those decisions for yourself. Like I said, every client is not saying, okay, Alex, I'll do everything you say. A lot of them are like, no, I don't like that. Or no, I think I'm going to do that. But there's
Mm-hmm.
part of the process where they need to respond to the things that I'm saying. And so it's a tactic, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's what I think. They're like, cool, I reject it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay,
Have
great.
a good one. Yeah.
No,
Amazing.
but also like that's part of it. That's part
Mm-hmm.
of the process. You need to
Mm-hmm.
certain people need to like bounce through different information and figure out what's
Hmm.
right. So long story short, that's
I love
why I'm
that.
confident about it. Yeah.
I love that. I had one other question about this, just as I'm like thinking through how you can use this with marketing. It's so interesting to me that obviously, like, you know how you operate best and your purpose in the world. Is there a way, like, for example, if I have a target audience and a lot of them are very similar, is there a way to know that about your audience and be able to like incorporate that into your strategy as well?
Yeah, for sure. So, like for you, for example, I really like that you have mutable energy in your chart because you are a curator. So, you're
Mm,
somebody that a lot of the information is going to come from you, but then there's going to be a lot of information that you'll give people as a resource that you found helpful, right?
yeah.
And you can start to say like, this is going to work for this person. This is not probably going to work for this person.
Hmm.
What's the beautiful thing about energy is that we attract people typically that are
Hmm.
emitting a similar frequency that we're emitting. So if we're
Hmm.
owning it and we're like really doubled down and like who we are in our zone of genius, then like odds are a lot of our core clients are going to be wired pretty similarly, no matter like
Hmm.
where they're, whatever walk of life they're in. Um, so you can trust that like if this has been really helpful for me in the way that I process information, I can kind of venture to bet that it'll probably help other people as well. And depending on
Hmm.
the strategy that I'm employing, I can trust that this will resonate. So
Okay.
yes. So it's like a yes and. It's like you
Yeah.
continue to build these things on top of each other, right? Like if
Hmm.
you were if you were in private practice and you were a therapist,
Hmm.
we employ a little bit of a different strategy, right? But we
Right.
could use the same tactics, just kind of in a different way.
Yeah, I love that because I think that that's just how it goes in general with marketing and sales as well. Like you have all these principles, you have all these frameworks, but it adjusts based on your industry, your target audience, what they're struggling with, your product, your service, things like that. So I think that that's kind of how everything is. It's like you have just like a framework that you operate off of, but depending on who you are, industry or in things like that, you implement it like a little bit differently, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
that's hard too. I like that. It's like so creative, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really fun to because then I mean like you could have I'm the same way. Like you could have one person who or two people who are very similar industry, but they're completely different people, completely different audiences and the way that you implement is very different too. So that's really fun. Yeah. I love
Exactly.
that. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, I know obviously you have something called your Get Your Shit Together planner. I need to know about this because I saw that name. I was like, I think that's my favorite name I've ever seen. Tell me about this.
That's not the name on Amazon because they like wouldn't let me. Although I'll try again. Maybe they would let me with the
Take
asterisk.
two.
And
Yeah.
take two. I made this so like the way I keep myself organized every week is I'll divide my week into buckets.
Hmm.
So what's like closest to revenue,
Yeah.
obviously admin stuff, and then what I'm working on for creative projects and then growth. And
Hmm.
I have ADHD and I
Hmm.
have a lot of mutable energy in my chart. So I'm kind of like all over the place. I need focus. That
Hmm.
was the best way to structure my week because it allows me to go with urges. Like, let's say I'm like on an admin kick. It rarely
Hmm.
happens, but it could. Okay,
But
well,
it could.
I
Hmm.
only want to look in that bucket.
Hmm.
So I have the planner just aligned in that way to give people strategy, the same strategy that I use because I walk the walk and just, go with what is going to help them get focused. What I noticed with a lot of my clients is like they didn't have a way to keep themselves organized. They weren't using
Mm.
time blocking, they weren't using any sort of planner, they weren't using
Hmm.
their and I'm like, all right, well, start here. I'm going to just give you this book. If you eventually want to put that on your computer, if that works better for you, or if you want to put that, what I like is actually taking those blocks and then putting them on my calendar as
Mm.
a
I love
list.
that.
But that's my entrepreneurial planner. Get your shit
I
together.
love that. No, because I, growing up, was like I had to have a planner at all times. If I didn't, I felt so out of control. And so I saw that. I'm like, you have a get your shit together planner. This is the most incredible thing.
It's
Oh my
cute.
gosh.
It's
I
cute.
love
Like
that.
little, and then like I also have on the other page like,
Yeah.
you know, brain
Hmm.
dump, delights,
Yeah.
personal shit.
I
So
love that. Well, for those of you that are listening and not watching, you'll have to go watch the YouTube version of this so you can kind of see a little bit about what was inside the planner. But for everyone who wants to get their shit together as a business owner, make sure that you check out Alex's planner. That's absolutely incredible. Is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with, leave our listeners with, anything else you want to add?
oh man, I mean, truly anything's possible. I'm really so proud of you. If you chose to get into entrepreneurial like space, like hats off to you no matter where you're at in your journey. Like I know that the road is not always paved and sometimes you're, really in the thick of it, but it is so fun and rewarding and I cannot imagine like doing anything else now. I think
I know.
you're stuck now. Like
Hmm.
you're kind of screwed. You can't really
Yeah.
do anything else.
You're going to love it too much.
And you're gonna love it. Yeah, and it's just now it's in your blood, it's in your bones, and I'm proud of you.
I love that. I love that. Amazing. Well, then tell our listeners where they can find you online.
Yeah. Well, the easiest place is just Capricorn Rising Inc, which is my agency, my strategy spot. And then we're Capricorn Rising Inc on Instagram and TikTok. And that's the best way. I'm
Okay,
there.
amazing. And we'll link everything obviously in the show notes. We'll link the planner and all that in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. But thank you so much for coming and talking about all this. I think this has been such a really neat, like it's been a bit of a far cry from what we normally talk about, but I think it's so fascinating and just fits kind of right into everything. So thank you again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for going
Yeah.
there. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we will see you in the next episode and have a great rest of your day. Bye.